The boardroom fell silent as William Parker slammed his fist on the mahogany table, his face flushing crimson beneath the artful silver at his temples. The 12 engineers seated around him shrank into their ergonomic chairs, gazes dropping to the spreadsheets before them. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan's skyline glittered indifferently in the late afternoon sun, a stark backdrop to the crisis unfolding on the 50th floor of Tech Vision Industries. 8 months. William said, his voice dangerously quiet before rising to fill the room. 8 months and $50 million, and you're telling me we're no closer to fixing this algorithm. He gestured toward the main screen, where complex data visualizations displayed the failing RevGrid system. The Department of Energy is expecting a working prototype in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. The last words echoed off the glass walls. Sarah Chen, Director of Engineering, straightened her spine against the implicit accusation. At 34, she had already established herself as one of the industry's brightest minds, but the RevGrid project had become a quagmire that threatened to derail her carefully constructed career. The issue is more complex than we initially estimated, Mr. Parker. The algorithm works perfectly in all our simulations, but when we integrate actual grid data from the past decade, the predictions destabilize. We've tried isolating each variable. I don't want explanations, Sarah. I want solutions. William paced the room in his Italian leather shoes clicking rhythmically against the marble floor. At 50, he carried himself with the confident authority of someone who had built an empire from nothing. This renewable energy distribution system was supposed to revolutionize how America powers itself. Instead, it's becoming the biggest embarrassment in this company's history. The weight of his disappointment pressed down on the room. William stopped pacing, gazing out at the city he'd conquered through sheer determination and brilliance. Tech Vision had begun in a garage 20 years ago with nothing but his coding skills and immigrant parents' unwavering belief in their son. Now it employed thousands across 3 continents. He wouldn't let one algorithm, however complex, tarnish that legacy. He turned back to the room, a bitter laugh escaping his throat. You know what, I'm so desperate, I'll make an open offer. His voice took on an edge of reckless frustration. Fix this algorithm and I'll personally write a check for $200 million. To anyone. I don't care if it's the janitor or the coffee lady, $200 million to whoever saves this project. The engineers exchanged uncomfortable glances. They'd never seen their CEO this unhinged. As the meeting disbanded, William retreated to his office, loosening his tie and pouring himself 2 fingers of Macallan 25. He didn't notice the small figure mopping the corridor outside the boardroom. A girl with intelligent dark eyes wearing her father's maintenance uniform rolled up at the sleeves covering her school clothes. 12-year-old Lily Diaz had been coming to work with her father since her mother died 3 years ago. Roberto Diaz, Tech Vision's night maintenance supervisor, had no choice but to bring his daughter along during evening shifts. With after-school programs too expensive and no family nearby, Lily had become a shadow in Tech Vision's gleaming hallways, doing homework in break rooms and helping her father with simple tasks. The rule was always the same: stay invisible. Don't bother the important people. But Lily had been listening for months now. She'd heard the engineers complaining in hallways, seen their frustrated diagrams through glass walls during late-night sessions. She'd collected discarded notes from recycling bins, piecing together fragments of the problem that had the entire engineering department in despair. And slowly, in her mathematically gifted mind, patterns had begun to emerge. "Papa," she whispered as Roberto pushed his cleaning cart past her, "I think I know what's wrong with their computer problem." Roberto's weathered face creased with concern. After 10 years at Tech Vision, he knew his position was precarious. Immigrants without college degrees weren't exactly in high demand, especially single fathers needing consistent hours and health insurance. "Mija, no, we don't interfere. These are very smart people with fancy degrees. We just clean." Lily's eyes sparked with a familiar determination, the same look her mother used to get when facing an obstacle. "But Papa, they're stuck because they keep looking at new code. They need to look backward." That evening, William Parker arrived home to his Central Park West penthouse at 9. The lights automatically adjusted to a warm glow as he stepped from the private elevator, but the 5,000-square-foot space felt cavernously empty. Tossing his keys onto the marble counter, he noticed the silence, broken only by faint classical music from his son's bedroom. "Jason," he called, walking down the hallway. "You still up?" He found his 15-year-old son hunched over a desk, headphones on, surrounded by textbooks in a half-finished science project. Jason Parker reluctantly removed his headphones, revealing the same sharp eyes as his father, though currently narrowed with teenage indifference. "Hey, how was school today?" William asked, attempting normalcy despite the exhaustion weighing on his shoulders. "Fine." Jason turned back to his project, something with circuits and LED lights. William lingered at the doorway. 5 years since Catherine's accident, and he still didn't know how to bridge the gap her absence had created. His son was slipping away, retreating into music and science while William retreated into work. The symmetry wasn't lost on him. "That looks interesting. What is it?" William nodded toward the project. Jason sighed but explained, "It's a solar-powered monitoring system for the science fair." "Smart, like your mom." The words slipped out before William could catch them, hanging awkwardly between them. A flicker of something pain, or perhaps connection, crossed Jason's face before his expression closed again. "I have a band concert next Saturday. At school." William nodded, mentally reviewing his calendar. Another meeting with investors, but he could reschedule. "I'll be there." Jason's shoulders relaxed marginally. "You said that last time." The accusation stung because it was fair. "I know. I'm sorry about that. This time I promise." They shared a moment of tentative truce before William retreated, carrying the weight of another broken promise he hoped not to make. In a modest two-bedroom apartment in Queens, Roberto and Lily sat at their small kitchen table, eating arroz con pollo. The walls were covered with Lily's academic achievement certificates, alongside photos of Elena, Roberto's late wife. After Elena's 3-year battle with cancer, the medical bills had left Roberto with nothing but debt and determination to give his daughter the future his wife had dreamed for her. "You're quiet tonight, mija," Roberto observed, watching his daughter push food around her plate. Lily looked up. "The engineers at your work, they're trying to fix a big problem with their energy system, right?" Roberto nodded cautiously. "The RevGrid project. Very important, very complicated. Why?" "I've been reading their notes from the recycling," she added quickly, seeing her father's expression, "and looking at their screens when they leave them on. Papa, I think they have a date problem." "A date problem?" Roberto furrowed his brow. Lily's eyes lit up with excitement. "It's like when you and Tio Miguel argue about soccer scores because he uses the European way of writing dates, day first, then month. But you use the American way, month first, then day." She grabbed a notebook and quickly sketched a diagram. "Look, the old data uses European format from when they bought that British company last year, but their new system uses American format. So when the program tries to analyze past energy usage for dates like March 2nd, it gets confused with February 3rd. Roberto stared at his daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. "Lily, how do you understand all this?" She shrugged. "Numbers make sense to me. They're like colors or music, they have patterns." Her expression grew serious. "Papa, this could help them. They've been working so hard and they look so tired." Roberto ran a hand through his graying hair. He thought of Elena's words before she died. "Don't let our daughter's light be hidden because of fear." He thought of his position at Tech Vision, the health insurance that had helped during Elena's illness, and the stable paycheck that kept their modest life afloat. "Mr. Parker said he would pay $200 million to anyone who fixed it," Lily added quietly. Roberto gave a sad laugh. "Rich people say many things, mija. They don't mean them." But that night, as Lily slept, Roberto stared at her simple diagram. His daughter had always been exceptional. Teachers had used words like gifted and prodigy since kindergarten. But opportunities for children like Lily, children without connections or wealth, were limited. He thought of William Parker's frustrated face in the boardroom and made a decision that would change everything. Sarah Chen arrived at her office at 7:30 the following morning, already on her third espresso. She hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night for weeks as the RevGrid problem consumed her professional life. Her team had tried everything: recalibrating sensors, rewriting code sections, even rebuilding parts of the framework from scratch. Nothing worked. She was reviewing the latest failed diagnostic when her phone buzzed with a text from William. "Meeting in main conference room, 9 a.m. Might have something. Bring your lead engineers." Sarah's heart raced with equal parts hope and skepticism. William had a habit of grasping at straws when stressed. Still, she immediately alerted her team. At precisely 9 a.m., Sarah entered the conference room with her 5 lead engineers to find William already there along with a man in a maintenance uniform and a young girl who couldn't be more than 12. The girl clutched a notebook and stood close to the man, clearly her father. "Sarah, everyone, this is Roberto Diaz from our maintenance staff," William said, his expression unreadable, "and his daughter Lily." The engineers exchanged confused glances. Sarah forced a professional smile despite her exhaustion and confusion. "Nice to meet you both." Roberto nodded nervously. "Lily she has an idea about your project, the Rev Grid." William gestured toward the whiteboard. "Go ahead, Lily. Show them what you showed me earlier." Lily approached the board with remarkable composure for her age. Taking a marker, she began drawing a simple flowchart. "The problem isn't in your new code. It's how your system interprets dates from the historical data you acquired from Britannic Energy last year." The room fell silent as Lily explained her theory about the date format conflict, methodically walking them through how this would create exactly the cascading failures they'd been experiencing. Her small hand moved confidently across the board, mapping out where the European date format DDMMYYY would conflict with the American format NMMDDYY in specific circumstances. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as the elegant simplicity of the solution revealed itself. Her team had been so focused on complex algorithmic issues that they'd overlooked a fundamental data interpretation problem. She quickly opened her laptop, running a test query with Lily's hypothesis in mind. "Try looking at the data from February 3rd and March 2nd specifically," Lily suggested. "The system would read 0203 and 0302 differently depending on which format it's using." Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard. The room held its collective breath as she executed the query. Then her eyes widened. "She's right. The system is inverting these dates, which is why the prediction models collapse when processing historical patterns." She looked up at Lily with newfound respect. "How did you figure this out?" Lily fidgeted with the edge of her notebook. "I like puzzles, and I've been watching you all try to fix it for months." William, who had been observing silently, finally spoke. "Sarah, how quickly can you implement a date standardization protocol? With this insight, hours, not days." Sarah was already messaging her team. "We'll need to create a conversion matrix for all historical data and standardize the input format moving forward." William nodded, then turned to Roberto and Lily. "Thank you for coming forward with this. Would you mind waiting in my office while we implement the fix? Diana will show you there." As they left, Sarah caught William's eye. "If this works—" "I know," he replied quietly. "I made a promise." 3 hours later, the conference room erupted in celebration as the RevGrid system successfully processed a full decade of historical energy data without a single error. Predictions stabilized, outputs aligned with expectations, and the algorithm performed exactly as designed. Sarah's team was ecstatic, high-fiving and already planning the implementation phase. William stood back, watching the jubilation with a complex mixture of relief, amazement, and humility. A 12-year-old girl had solved what his team of MIT and Stanford graduates couldn't crack in 8 months. The thought was both humbling and slightly disturbing. He slipped out and headed to his office, where Roberto and Lily waited awkwardly on the leather sofa. Lily was reading a technical manual she'd found on his bookshelf, completely absorbed, while Roberto sat straight-backed, clearly uncomfortable in the opulent surroundings. "It worked," William announced simply. Lily's face broke into a radiant smile. Roberto exhaled audibly, shoulders relaxing slightly. William settled into his chair, studying them both. "I need to ask, how did Lily come to understand our algorithms so thoroughly?" Roberto shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, we never accessed any secure files. Lily only collected discarded papers from recycling and—" "I'm not accusing you of anything," William interrupted. "I'm genuinely curious how a 12-year-old deciphered what my top engineers couldn't." Lily looked up from her book. "I see patterns others don't. Mom called it my superpower." A shadow crossed Roberto's face at the mention of his late wife. William caught it immediately, recognizing the particular grief of a widower. "Your mother was right," William said gently, then turned to Roberto. "Mr. Diaz, yesterday, in a moment of frustration, I made a rather extravagant promise. $200 million to whoever solved our problem." Roberto shook his head quickly. Sir, we don't expect. I keep my promises, Mr. Diaz. William leaned forward. But I'd like to structure this in a way that best serves Lily's future. I propose a $50 million trust for her education and future security. The remaining $150 million would establish the Elena Diaz Foundation. Am I correct? That was your wife's name? Roberto's eyes widened. Yes, but how did you? Lily mentioned her. William continued. The foundation would provide scholarships and opportunities for gifted children from underserved communities. Additionally, I'd like to offer you a new position at TechVision as Director of Facilities and Community Outreach, with a substantial salary increase and flexible hours to accommodate Lily's schedule. Roberto stared at William in disbelief. Sir, this is too much. Actually, it's not enough. William stood and walked to his window looking out at the city. Mr. Diaz, your daughter just saved this company tens of millions in development costs and potentially billions in future contracts. But beyond that, she reminded me of something important. He turned back to face them. Brilliance doesn't only exist in prestigious universities or corporate boardrooms. Sometimes it's mopping floors after hours because that's the only way to be near where the action is. He looked at Lily. Your persistence and creativity are exactly what this company needs more of. Later that evening, William called an emergency meeting with his executive team and legal department to formalize his commitment. The reactions ranged from shock to outright opposition. This is corporate suicide, Marcus Harrington, the CFO, argued. $200 million for one simple fix. The board will never approve this. They don't need to, William replied calmly. I'm putting up half of it personally. The company will match the other half, which is still less than what we budgeted for continued development. But a maintenance worker's daughter, Patricia Wells from legal, protested. The optics are complicated. What about intellectual property rights, employment contracts? William's patience thinned. The optics, as you put it, Patricia, are exactly why we're doing this. A child solved what our entire engineering department couldn't. If that doesn't tell you we need to rethink our approach to talent and opportunity, I don't know what will. He looked around the room, meeting each person's gaze. When my parents came to this country, my father cleaned office buildings at night while studying English during the day. My mother sewed garments in a factory with no ventilation for 14 hours at a stretch. They did this so I could have opportunities they never had. His voice grew quiet but intense. I built this company on the belief that intelligence and innovation can come from anywhere. Today, Lily Diaz proved that, and we're going to honor it. The room fell silent. Sarah Chen, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. William's right. We become too insular, too convinced of our own superiority. Lily saw what we couldn't precisely because she wasn't trapped in our way of thinking. Slowly, reluctantly, the opposition subsided. By midnight, the legal framework for the Elena Diaz Foundation was taking shape with plans for a formal announcement at the end of the week. William arrived home at 1 a.m. to find Jason still awake working on his project. You're up late, William observed, loosening his tie. Jason shrugged. Couldn't sleep. He hesitated, then asked, Did you fix the rev grid problem? William paused, surprised that his son knew about the project. We did actually, but I didn't fix it. He sat on the edge of Jason's bed. A 12-year-old girl named Lily fixed it. Her father is part of our maintenance staff. Jason looked up with genuine interest. Seriously, how? As William explained Lily's elegant solution, he realized this was the longest conversation he'd had with his son in months. Jason was fully engaged, asking insightful questions about the algorithm and date formatting issues. That's actually brilliant, Jason said when William finished. So what happens to her now? We're setting up a foundation in her mother's name and a trust for her education. William hesitated. I was thinking you might want to meet her. She's a few years younger, but you two might have some things in common. Jason considered this, then nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe. After a pause, he added, Dad, about the concert on Saturday? I'll be there, William said firmly. I've already cleared my schedule. For the first time in ages, Jason smiled, a small but genuine smile that reminded William painfully of Catherine. Thanks. In their Queens apartment, Roberto sat at the kitchen table long after Lily had gone to bed, overwhelmed by the day's events. The possibility of such a dramatic change in their circumstances seemed too fragile to believe. He had spent years living paycheck to paycheck, taking extra shifts on weekends, stretching every dollar to create some semblance of stability for Lily. His gaze fell on Elena's photograph. "Can you believe it, mi amor?" he whispered. "Our Lily might have everything we dream for her." His eyes welled with tears. "I wish you were here to see it." The apartment felt different tonight, still small, still modest, but suddenly filled with possibility rather than limitation. Roberto thought about William Parker's offer of a new position, not charity but recognition of dignity and value. The idea that he might be able to help other families like his own to create pathways where barriers had stood before. He pulled out Elena's old jewelry box from the closet and opened it, removing the small velvet pouch inside. From it, he extracted her wedding ring, the one possession he hadn't sold during her illness. He had kept it for Lily, a tangible connection to her mother when memories might fade. "This is still yours, Elena," he promised the empty room. "But now Lily will have so much more of you, your name living on helping other children reach for the stars just like our daughter." At Tech Vision the next morning, word of Lily's solution had spread throughout the company. When Roberto arrived for his shift, having arranged a day off from his regular schedule for the meeting with William employees he'd never spoken to before stopped to congratulate him. Engineers who had previously looked through him as if he were invisible now approached with questions about his daughter. Sarah Chen met him in the lobby, extending her hand with newfound respect. "Mr. Diaz, I owe your daughter an enormous thank you and an apology for not seeing what she saw." Roberto shook her hand, still uncomfortable with the attention. "Lily has always seen the world differently. Her mother called it her gift." Sarah nodded. "It is a gift, one we'd like to nurture." She hesitated. "With your permission, I'd like to mentor Lily, introduce her to coding systems design, whatever interests her. No pressure, just opportunities." The offer caught Roberto by surprise. She would like that very much. In William's office, lawyers were finalizing paperwork for the trust and foundation when Roberto arrived. William dismissed them with a nod, offering Roberto a seat across from his desk. "Where's Lily today?" William asked. "School," Roberto replied. "I didn't want to disrupt her routine until I was sure this was real." William's expression softened with understanding. "It's real, Roberto, but I want to be clear, this isn't just about the money. Lily has something special, something Tech Vision needs more of. I'd like her to join our youth engineering program this summer if she's interested." Roberto nodded slowly. "She would love that, but—" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Mr. Parker, why are you really doing this? The foundation, the job offer, it's more than keeping a promise." William leaned back in his chair, considering the question. "When I was building this company, I promised myself I'd never forget where I came from, that I'd create opportunities for people like my parents, people who just needed one door to open." He gestured around his opulent office. "Somewhere along the way, I started believing my own myth that success was purely meritocratic, that talent always rises." He met Roberto's gaze directly. "Your daughter reminded me that brilliance exists everywhere, but opportunity doesn't. The foundation isn't charity, Roberto. It's an investment in the future of innovation and in my own humanity." The sincerity in William's voice resonated with Roberto's own journey, the sacrifices made for family, the hopes carried forward despite loss. Two fathers from vastly different worlds connected by love for their children and the shared experience of grief. "My wife would be proud," Roberto said simply. "Not of the money, but of what Lily has accomplished, and what this foundation could mean for children like her." William nodded, understanding passing between them. "I think my late wife would feel the same way." He extended his hand. "Partners, then." Roberto took the offered hand, his grip firm. "Partners." News of the Elena Diaz Foundation spread quickly. By afternoon, Tech Vision's stock had risen 3 points as investors responded positively to both the RevGrid breakthrough and the company's commitment to educational outreach. William received calls from board members initially skeptical, but warming to the PR advantages of the story, "Maintenance worker's daughter saves billion-dollar project." But for William, the narrative had shifted from corporate strategy to personal redemption. As he prepared for the press conference scheduled for the following day, he realized that Lily had given him something more valuable than an algorithm fix. She had reopened the door to his own humanity, the part of himself that had become buried under spreadsheets and strategic plans. That evening, for the first time in years, William left the office at 5 p.m. He picked up Jason from school and took him to dinner at the small Italian restaurant they used to visit as a family when Catherine was alive. "So this Lily," Jason said between bites of pasta, "she's really going to get $50 million. William nodded. "In a trust for her education and future. But more importantly, her mother's foundation will help hundreds of other children access opportunities they deserve." Jason studied his father's face. "You've changed since yesterday." "Have I? Yeah, you seem, I don't know, more like you used to be, before Mom died." The observation caught William off guard. Had he changed so dramatically in his son's eyes? Had grief and ambition hardened him that noticeably? "I'm trying," he admitted. "I think I lost sight of some important things, including you." Jason twirled pasta around his fork, avoiding eye contact. "Dad, do you think I could maybe help with the foundation somehow? Like during summer break?" William felt something crack open in his chest, a door he'd thought permanently closed. "I think that's a fantastic idea. The foundation will need a youth advisory board. You and Lily could co-chair it." For the first time in what felt like forever, they talked easily through dinner about Jason's music, about the RevGrid project, about memories of Catherine. The invisible barrier between them hadn't disappeared entirely, but a door had opened, allowing possibility to flow between father and son once more. In Queens, Lily sat at the kitchen table, struggling to focus on her homework. The events of the past 24 hours felt surreal, like a movie rather than her actual life. Her father had explained what Mr. Parker was proposing: the trust, the foundation, the summer program at Tech Vision. "Is it really $50 million, Papa?" she asked for the third time. Roberto smiled gently. "Yes, mija, for your college, your future, whatever you want to do with your life." Lily frowned, processing this information. "But we don't need that much money. Miss Harris said I might get a scholarship for college anyway." Roberto took her hand. "This is more than just for college, Lily. This means you can go anywhere and study anything, create things, build things, help people without worrying about money. It's freedom to follow your gifts." Lily considered this, then asked the question that had been troubling her. "Will people think differently about me now? Will they only like me because of the money?" Roberto's heart ached at her perceptiveness. At 12, she already understood how wealth changed perceptions and relationships. "Some might," he acknowledged honestly. "But true friends will see you for who you are, not what you have. And you are still the same Lily, smart, kind, curious. Money doesn't change that unless we let it." She nodded solemnly, then her expression brightened. "Can we help Tia Maria with her medical bills? And maybe get a bigger apartment with room for my books?" Roberto laughed, relieved by her practical concerns. "Yes, mija, we can do those things. But we don't have to decide everything tonight. For now, finish your math homework." Lily rolled her eyes but returned to her equations. After a moment, she looked up again. "Papa, do you think Mom knows what happened?" Roberto felt his throat tighten. "I believe she does, Lily. I think she's been guiding you all along." But the following morning, as dawn broke over Manhattan, William prepared for the press conference that would announce both the RevGrid breakthrough and the establishment of the Elena Diaz Foundation. He had barely slept, his mind racing with possibilities and plans. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "RevGrid passed all overnight stress tests. 100% function, 0 errors. The DOE rep is ecstatic. Lily's fix worked perfectly." William smiled, relief washing through him. The technical success mattered, of course. Millions of dollars, and Tech Vision's reputation depended on it. But somehow it felt secondary to the human story unfolding alongside it. He straightened his tie, thinking about the press conference ahead. Roberto and Lily would be there, stepping into a spotlight neither had sought. Jason had asked to attend as well, expressing genuine interest in the foundation's development. Small steps toward healing, toward connection. As William left his penthouse, he glanced at the photo of Catherine on the entryway table. "You'd like them," he said softly to her image. "The Diaz family. They remind me of what matters." In Queens, Lily carefully selected her outfit for the press conference, her nicest dress, previously worn only for special school events. Roberto had pressed his best suit, the one he'd worn to Elena's funeral 3 years ago. They were stepping into an unfamiliar world together. "Are you nervous, Papa?" Lily asked as they rode the subway toward Manhattan. Roberto nodded honestly. "A little, but also proud. So proud of you, mija." Lily squeezed his hand. I'm proud of you too, Papa, for always believing in me, for working so hard after Mom died. Roberto blinked back tears, overwhelmed by his daughter's perception and compassion. At 12, she understood sacrifice and love in ways many adults never grasped. Your mother once told me that you would change the world someday, he said quietly. I think this is just the beginning. As their train rumbled beneath the city, carrying them toward a future neither could have imagined. Days earlier, Roberto thought about doors, the ones that close with loss, and the unexpected ones that open with courage. His daughter had opened such a door not just for herself, but for countless others who would benefit from Elena's foundation. The train emerged from the tunnel into sunlight, Manhattan's skyline rising before them like a promise. Lily pressed her face to the window, eyes wide with wonder at the possibilities stretching before her, a future limited only by imagination rather than circumstance. And as the Tech Vision building came into view, its glass facade reflecting the morning light, Roberto knew with certainty that Elena was watching her love continuing to guide their daughter toward greatness neither of them could have foreseen. William Parker stood at his office window, watching a maintenance worker clean the glass with methodical care. The simple dignity of the work reminded him of his father, of lessons learned long ago about respect, value, and the invisible labor that kept the world functioning. In hours, he would stand before cameras, announcing both a technological breakthrough and a new commitment to opportunity and inclusion. The cynical might see it as calculated PR, but William knew the truth. Lily Diaz had not only saved the RevGrid project, she had reminded him of his own humanity, of promises made to himself long ago. His phone buzzed with a message from Diana. The Diaz family has arrived. Conference room C. William took a deep breath and straightened his tie. A new chapter was beginning for Tech Vision, for the Diaz family, for his relationship with Jason, and for his own journey back to the values that had launched his company in the first place. Some doors close, others open unexpectedly. The trick William was learning was recognizing which ones matter most. Camera flashes erupted as William Parker guided Roberto and Lily Diaz through the gauntlet of reporters gathered in Tech Vision's main auditorium. The 12-year-old mathematical prodigy blinked nervously behind her glasses, clutching her father's hand as microphones thrust toward them from all directions. William stepped to the podium with practiced confidence, though his knuckles whitened as he gripped its edges. Today marks not only a technological breakthrough for Tech Vision Industries, but a fundamental shift in how we recognize and nurture talent. His voice carried across the hushed room. The revolutionary RevGrid algorithm, which will transform renewable energy distribution across America, was saved by the remarkable insight of Lily Diaz, the daughter of our maintenance supervisor, Roberto Diaz. More flashes as photographers captured Lily's shy smile. Roberto stood tall beside her, his maintenance uniform exchanged for a carefully pressed suit that couldn't quite hide his discomfort under the media spotlight. In recognition of Lily's extraordinary contribution, Tech Vision is establishing a $50 million educational trust in her name. Additionally, we're founding the Elena Diaz Foundation with an initial endowment of $150 million to support gifted children from underserved communities. The announcement triggered an explosion of questions. Journalists shouted over one another, cameras swiveled, and social media teams frantically composed headlines. Janitor's daughter gets $200 payday. Maintenance man's child solves billion-dollar problem. William fielded questions with diplomatic precision, carefully framing the narrative away from charity toward recognition of merit. Behind him, Sarah Chen stood alongside other executives, her expression a complex mixture of professional admiration and personal reckoning with the fact that a child had solved what her entire department couldn't. From the front row, Jason Parker watched his father with newfound interest. The theatrical aspects of the press conference didn't impress the 15-year-old he'd seen his father perform for cameras since childhood. What captured Jason's attention was the genuine emotion breaking through his father's polished corporate veneer when he described Lily's achievement. Roberto stepped forward when invited, his voice steady despite his nerves. My daughter has always seen patterns where others see confusion. Her mother, Elena, recognized this gift before anyone else. His voice caught slightly. This foundation will honor Elena's memory by ensuring other children like Lily have opportunities regardless of their circumstances. A reporter from the Wall Street Journal raised her hand. Mr. Parker, Tech Vision's stock has already jumped 5 points since news of the RevGrid breakthrough leaked. Critics might see this foundation as an elaborate publicity stunt rather than genuine philanthropy. Your response? The question hung in the air, its cynicism cutting through the celebratory atmosphere. William's jaw tightened momentarily before relaxing into a calm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. 2 days ago, I made a public promise to reward whoever solved our algorithm problem. When that person turned out to be a 12-year-old girl mopping floors after school, I had a choice. William paused, glancing briefly at Lily. I could either uphold my word and recognize extraordinary talent regardless of its source, or I could retreat behind corporate legalese. The path I chose reflects not just TechVision's values, but my own personal commitment to opportunity. Whether that affects our stock price is secondary to doing what's right. The authenticity in his response silenced the room momentarily. Even the most cynical reporters recognized they were witnessing something unusual in corporate America, a powerful CEO publicly reconnecting with his moral compass. As the press conference concluded, social media exploded with the story. Hashtags #LilyDiaz and #AlgorithmAngel trended nationwide. Video clips of the shy 12-year-old genius beside her proud father spread across platforms, generating millions of views within hours. Financial analysts scrambled to assess the impact on TechVision's long-term outlook, while education advocates seized on the foundation announcement as a rallying point for expanded opportunities in STEM fields. Behind the scenes, TechVision's legal team worked feverishly to structure the trust and foundation. Patricia Wells, head of legal affairs, cornered William in the hallway after the press conference, her expression tight with concern. The board is split on this, William. Harrison and Chen are supportive, but Abernathy and the Boston contingent are questioning your authority to commit these funds without prior approval. She handed him a preliminary brief. They're suggesting this constitutes a breach of fiduciary duty. William scanned the document, his expression hardening. The board gave me discretionary authority over the RevGrid project budget, which is precisely where these funds are coming from. And I'm personally contributing half, as they well know. Patricia adjusted her glasses nervously. It's not just the money, William. It's the precedent. If every company employee started looking for 9-figure paydays for operational insights, this wasn't an operational insight, Patricia. This was a fundamental breakthrough that saved a flagship project representing 30% of our projected growth for the next fiscal year. William handed the brief back to her. Schedule an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. I'll address their concerns directly. As Patricia hurried away, William caught sight of Jason waiting by the elevator. The teenager had removed his tie but still wore the formal blazer William had insisted on for the press conference. For once, Jason hadn't argued about the dress code. That was actually pretty cool, Jason admitted as they stepped into the private elevator to William's office. The way you handled that reporter. You really believe in this, don't you? William considered his son's question, recognizing its layers. Jason wasn't just asking about the foundation. He was probing whether his father's apparent transformation was genuine or another performance. I do. William leaned against the elevator wall. When I started this company, I promised myself I'd never become the kind of executive who forgets that talent and potential exist everywhere. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that. The elevator doors opened to his penthouse office suite. Lily reminded me. Jason followed his father into the office, gravitating toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Mom would have liked her. Lily, I mean. The unexpected reference to Catherine caught William off guard. Jason rarely mentioned his mother voluntarily, as though speaking of her might reopen wounds that had never properly healed. She would have. William joined his son at the window. Your mother always saw potential in unexpected places. It's one of the things I love most about her. The moment of connection hung between them, fragile but real. William resisted the urge to push further, understanding that Jason was setting the pace of their reconciliation. So what happens now? Jason turned from the window. With Lily and her dad, Roberto starts his new position next week as Director of Facilities and Community Outreach. Lily will join our summer engineering program if she wants to. William smiled slightly. And you, if you're still interested, could help develop the Youth Advisory Board for the foundation. Jason nodded, his expression thoughtful rather than dismissive, a small victory in itself. I should get back to school. Tests this afternoon. I'll have Davis drive you. William hesitated, then added, don't forget your concert is Saturday. I've cleared my schedule. A flash of surprise crossed Jason's face, followed by a cautious optimism. Right, 7 o'clock. After Jason left, William turned his attention to the impending board confrontation. He'd faced skeptical directors before, but never with so much personally at stake. This wasn't just about corporate policy or fiscal responsibility. It was about the kind of leader and man he wanted to be. In Queens, Roberto and Lily returned to their apartment in a daze. Their modest living room seemed surreal after the opulence of Tech Vision's headquarters and the intensity of the media spotlight. Neighbors had left congratulatory notes on their door, and Roberto's phone buzzed continuously with messages from relatives who had seen them on television. Lily immediately changed out of her formal clothes into comfortable jeans and a t-shirt, as though shedding the unfamiliar role she'd been playing. She settled at the kitchen table with her math homework, seeking refuge in the familiar comfort of equations. Roberto watched his daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. "You were very brave today, mija. How are you feeling about everything?" Lily chewed her pencil thoughtfully. "It's weird. Everyone's making such a big deal, but all I did was notice a pattern." She looked up at her father. "Do you think things will be different now? At school and stuff?" The question cut to Roberto's core concern. Money changed things, relationships, expectations, opportunities. He'd seen it happen to lottery winners and professional athletes from the neighborhood, how sudden wealth could be as destructive as it was liberating. "Some things will change, Lily. We'll have more options, more security. But who we are, that doesn't have to change." He sat beside her, placing his hand over hers. "Your mother always said that true wealth isn't in a bank account. It's in how we treat others and in being true to ourselves." Lily smiled at the mention of her mother, though the expression carried a shadow of loss. "I wish Mom could see all this. She sees mija. In her own way, she sees." Roberto squeezed her hand gently. "And she would be so proud of you. Not because of the money or the attention, but because you used your gifts to help others." The moment was interrupted by a knock at their door. Roberto opened it to find their landlord, Mr. Patel, standing there with a bottle of champagne and a forced smile. "Mr. Diaz, such wonderful news about your daughter, a true genius in our building." Mr. Patel's enthusiasm seemed excessive given his previous interactions with Roberto had been limited to rent collection and reluctant repairs. "I wanted to personally congratulate you both." Roberto thanked him politely, accepting the champagne, though he had no intention of drinking it. Mr. Patel lingered awkwardly in the doorway. "You know, Mr. Diaz, I've been meaning to discuss your lease. With your new circumstances, perhaps you'll be looking for more suitable accommodations." The landlord's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, breaking your current lease would normally incur penalties, but I'm willing to make an exception in your case." The implication was clear now that they had money they no longer belonged in this building. Roberto felt a surge of anger, but kept his expression neutral for Lily's sake. "Thank you for your concern, Mr. Patel. We haven't made any decisions yet about moving." Roberto's tone remained courteous but firm. "We've been very happy here." After the landlord left, Lily looked up from her homework. "He wants us to move out, doesn't he?" Roberto sighed, struck again by his daughter's perceptiveness. "He thinks rich people shouldn't live in apartments like ours." "But we're not rich yet. The trust is for college and stuff later, right?" Lily frowned. "And anyway, this is our home." Roberto nodded, but the encounter had crystallized something he had been feeling since the press conference. The world was already beginning to treat them differently, not because of who they were, but because of what they now represented. The challenge would be maintaining their identity amidst these shifting perceptions. That evening, Roberto received a call from his sister Maria in Miami. Unlike the landlord's transparent opportunism, Maria's tearful congratulations came from a place of genuine love. As Roberto described the day's events, Maria interrupted with the question he'd been dreading. "Does this mean you'll be able to help with Mama's hip surgery?" Maria's voice carried the weight of shared responsibility and familial obligation. Their mother had been on a waiting list for surgery for months, with medical bills already straining the family's resources. Roberto closed his eyes, conflicted. The trust was structured for Lily's future, and the foundation funds were designated for educational opportunities. His new position would certainly provide a better salary, but access to the larger sums would be restricted by legal frameworks still being established. Yes, I will help, Roberto promised, making a mental note to discuss healthcare expenses with William's legal team. Family obligations had always been non-negotiable in the Diaz household, regardless of circumstance. After hanging up, Roberto sat alone in the kitchen, overwhelmed by the day's events and the implications for their future. Their lives had been upended in less than 48 hours, transforming from comfortable anonymity to sudden prominence. The practical realities of their new status were emerging opportunities and expectations, arriving hand in hand, each requiring careful navigation. At TechVision headquarters, Sarah Chen was conducting final validation tests on the RevGrid algorithm. With Lily's date format solution implemented, the system was performing flawlessly, predicting energy usage patterns with unprecedented accuracy. The Department of Energy representatives were ecstatic, already discussing expanded applications beyond the initial contract specifications. Sarah stared at the elegantly functioning code, still processing how she had missed such a fundamental issue. Her team of brilliant engineers had been approaching the problem from increasingly complex angles, missing the simple date format discrepancy that had been hiding in plain sight. Still can't believe it was that simple, can you? Thomas Riley, her senior developer, joined her at the monitoring station. 8 months of our lives spent chasing ghosts in the machine, and a kid cracks it in an afternoon. Sarah tensed slightly at his characterization. Lily didn't just get lucky, Thomas. She saw a pattern we missed because she approached the problem without our preconceptions. She closed the diagnostic window with a decisive click. That's why I've invited her to join us this summer. We need fresh perspectives. Thomas raised an eyebrow. You're not worried about being shown up by a 12-year-old again. I'm more worried about missing breakthroughs because we're too arrogant to recognize insight regardless of its source. Sarah gathered her files. The DOE wants a full presentation tomorrow. Have the team compile the validation reports by morning. As Sarah headed toward the elevator, her phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Board meeting, 9:00 a.m. RevGrid Foundation discussion. William would be facing significant pushback from conservative board members, and Sarah knew her technical endorsement would be crucial to defending his decision to reward Lily so generously. The political dimensions of the situation weren't lost on her. Supporting William meant potentially alienating board members who could influence her future at the company. Remaining neutral would betray the values she claimed to uphold. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. Integrity demanded a clear position. Sarah sent William a brief message. Full technical validation complete. DOE extremely satisfied. Will provide comprehensive support at board meeting tomorrow. His reply came seconds later. Thank you, Sarah. This matters. The next morning, Roberto arrived at TechVision for his first official day as Director of Facilities and Community Outreach. The position was newly created, its boundaries still being defined, but William had made clear it would involve both overseeing the physical operations of TechVision's headquarters and developing programs to engage underserved communities. The security guard who had barely acknowledged Roberto for 10 years now greeted him warmly by name, directing him to the executive floor instead of the maintenance department. The elevator required a special key card, which had been delivered to his apartment that morning in a sleek TechVision envelope. Diana Reynolds Williams, executive assistant, met Roberto as he stepped off the elevator, her professional demeanor softened by a genuine smile. Good morning, Mr. Diaz. Your office is ready, and HR has scheduled an orientation session at 10. Mr. Parker asked to see you briefly before the board meeting. Roberto followed her through the executive suite, acutely aware of the curious glances from other employees. His new office, a concept still surreal to him, was modest by executive standards but palatial compared to the shared maintenance break room he was accustomed to. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the city, and the desk bore a simple nameplate, Roberto Diaz, Director. This is very nice. Roberto managed, resisting the urge to check if someone was about to reveal it was all an elaborate prank. Diana handed him a folder of orientation materials. There's a lot to absorb, but don't worry about mastering everything immediately. The maintenance staff already respects you, which gives you a head start many executives never achieve. Roberto nodded, appreciating her effort to ease his transition. Thank you. Will Lily be able to visit the engineering department today? She was very excited about seeing the laboratories. Sarah Chen has arranged for a tour this afternoon. Diana checked her tablet. Mr. Parker is ready to see you now if you will follow me. William's office occupied the corner of the executive floor, its expansive windows offering panoramic views of Manhattan. He stood as Roberto entered, extending his hand with genuine warmth. "Roberto, welcome to your first official day. How does it feel so far?" Roberto shook his hand, still adjusting to this new dynamic between them. "Overwhelming, but I'm grateful for the opportunity." William gestured for him to sit. "I wanted to brief you before the board meeting. Some directors are questioning the scale of our commitment to Lilly and the foundation. They're not opposing the concept, but they're concerned about the precedent and the financial impact." Roberto nodded, unsurprised. "I understand their concerns. $200 million is an extraordinary amount." "It's not just about the money," William leaned forward. "It's about challenging the company's culture, recognizing that innovation can come from anywhere, not just from people with prestigious degrees or executive titles." He paused, studying Roberto. "I may need to ask you to speak to the board directly about Lily's process and your family's circumstances. Would you be comfortable with that?" The request heightened Roberto's anxiety, but he recognized its importance. Yes, if it helps secure the foundation's future. Elena would have wanted that. William nodded appreciatively. "This foundation could change thousands of lives, Roberto. Children like Lily, who might otherwise never get the chance to develop their gifts." He glanced at his watch. "The meeting starts in 30 minutes. Diana will show you to the boardroom when it's time." As Roberto left William's office, he noticed a photograph on the desk that hadn't been visible from his seat. William, with a woman and a much younger Jason, all smiling against a backdrop of mountains. The happiness in their expressions made the absence of the woman, William's late wife, even more poignant. The Tech Vision boardroom embodied corporate power, with its mahogany table stretching beneath crystal lighting fixtures and windows overlooking the city. Executive board members in bespoke suits murmured among themselves as Roberto entered alongside William. Their conversations halted abruptly, replaced by polite but evaluating stares. Marcus Abernathy, a silver-haired venture capitalist who had been with Tech Vision since its early funding rounds, watched Roberto with undisguised skepticism. Helen Cheng, representing Asian investment partners, offered a more welcoming smile. James Harrison, the technical director, nodded respectfully, having already reviewed the RevGrid validation reports. William opened the meeting with characteristic directness. "Yesterday, Tech Vision announced both a technological breakthrough and a significant philanthropic initiative. Today, we're here to discuss the structure and implementation of these commitments." Abernathy didn't wait for William to finish his introduction. "Before we proceed, I'd like to express serious concerns about the scale and hasty nature of these commitments. $200 million represents a significant percentage of our liquid assets committed without proper board consultation." William remained composed. "As you're all aware, the RevGrid project was allocated a discretionary budget of $80 million under my direct authority. $50 million of that remains unspent due to Lily Diaz's breakthrough. That, combined with my personal contribution of $100 million, fully funds our commitment without impacting other operational budgets." Harrison supported William with technical validation. "The RevGrid solution has already secured the Department of Energy contract valued at $300 million over 5 years. Additional commercial applications could generate billions in revenue. From a purely financial perspective, the reward is proportionate to the value created." Abernathy remained unconvinced. "It sets an unsustainable precedent, William. Every employee will expect lottery-sized payouts for routine contributions." Sarah Chen, who had joined the meeting to present the technical validation, interjected firmly. "With respect, Mr. Abernathy, there was nothing routine about this contribution. My entire department, composed of engineers with multiple advanced degrees, worked for 8 months without identifying the core issue. Lily's allocation wasn't incremental, it was transformative." The debate continued for nearly an hour, with directors raising concerns about legal structures, tax implications, and governance of the foundation. Throughout, Roberto sat quietly observing the power dynamics of a world he had previously glimpsed only from the periphery. The contrast between this room and his former break room in the basement was stark, both in physical luxury and in the casual way millions of dollars were discussed as abstract figures rather than life-changing sums. Finally, William turned to him. "Roberto, would you share with the board how Lily came to understand our algorithm problem?" Roberto straightened in his chair, acutely aware of the collective gaze of some of America's most powerful business leaders. He spoke simply but with dignity, describing Lily's natural gift for patterns, her observations while helping him during evening shifts, and her collection of discarded notes from recycling bins. My daughter has always seen connections others miss, Roberto explained. After her mother died, Lily became even more focused on mathematics and puzzles. They provided structure when our world felt chaotic. When she realized she might be able to help solve TechVision's problem, her first concern wasn't about reward, but about whether sharing her insights might cost me my job. The humanity of this account visibly affected several board members. Helen Cheng herself, a mother, leaned forward. And how will this foundation honor your late wife's memory? Mr. Diaz, Roberto's voice softened. Elena always said that Lily's mind was a gift that should benefit the world. She worked 2 jobs to buy Lily advanced mathematics books even when we could barely afford rent. The foundation will support children with similar gifts but limited resources, providing not just education, but mentorship and community. It will help them become contributors rather than casualties of circumstance. The authenticity of Roberto's response shifted the atmosphere in the room. Even Abernathy's expression softened slightly. William seized the moment to propose a compromise, a phased funding approach, with established metrics and board oversight of the foundation's governance. After another hour of negotiation, the board voted 7-2 to approve the modified proposal. The Elena Diaz Foundation would proceed with its mission, though, with more formal oversight than William had initially envisioned. As the meeting concluded, Abernathy approached Roberto directly. Mr. Diaz, your daughter's contribution is impressive regardless of my concerns about process. I hope she'll consider applying to Stanford's accelerated mathematics program when she's ready. My wife serves on their admissions committee. Roberto thanked him politely, recognizing the olive branch for what it was: acceptance into a world that operated on connections as much as merit. The irony wasn't lost on him. The very system the foundation sought to disrupt was already opening doors for Lily that would remain closed to others without her newfound prominence. Meanwhile, Lily was experiencing her own version of status transformation at school. Word of her achievement had spread rapidly, transforming her overnight from a quiet, studious presence to the center of unwanted attention. Teachers who had previously offered minimal encouragement now highlighted her contributions effusively. Classmates who had barely acknowledged her existence suddenly claimed long-standing friendship. During lunch period, Lily retreated to the library, seeking refuge in the familiar quiet of the mathematics section. She was comparing approaches to differential equations when Marcus Jones, one of the school's most popular 8th graders, slid into the chair across from her. "So you're actually like rich now?" Marcus asked without preamble. "My dad says you got $200 million for fixing some computer thing." Lily closed her book, uncomfortable with his directness. "It's not really like that. Most of the money goes to a foundation named after my mom, and the rest is in a trust for college and stuff." Marcus seemed disappointed by this pragmatic arrangement. "But you could buy whatever you want, right? Like if you wanted the new PlayStation or designer clothes or whatever." The question illuminated the gulf between her new public image and her reality. To Marcus and others, she had transformed into a symbol of wealth and success overnight. They couldn't see that she was still processing her mother's death, still adjusting to life's unpredictability, still the same Lily who found comfort in mathematical certainties when everything else felt unstable. "I guess I could, but that's not really the point." Lily gathered her books, seeking escape. "I have class soon." As she navigated the suddenly attentive hallways, Lily found herself longing for her previous anonymity. The weight of others' expectations and projections was an unanticipated burden of her new status, one that wouldn't be resolved by trust funds or educational opportunities. That afternoon, Sarah Chen personally guided Lily through TechVision's engineering laboratories. Unlike the awkward interactions at school, Sarah treated Lily with genuine professional respect, explaining complex systems without condescension and introducing her to engineers as the algorithm specialist who solved our date format problem. In the main development lab, Sarah showed Lily the physical manifestation of the RevGrid system, a scale model demonstrating how renewable energy would be distributed through smart grid technology across varying population densities. "Your solution didn't just fix a coding error, Lily. It will help optimize energy delivery to communities that have historically been underserved." Sarah adjusted a parameter on the model, showing how solar and wind power could be dynamically allocated based on usage patterns. When people have reliable access to affordable energy, Everything improves: education, healthcare, economic opportunity. The practical impact of her contribution resonated with Lily more deeply than the abstract millions now attached to her name. This was tangible, a real-world application that would improve actual lives. Could the system be adapted for international use? Lily asked, thinking of her mother's stories about growing up in a rural Mexican village with intermittent electricity. In places with limited infrastructure, Sarah's expression brightened at the question. That's exactly the kind of application we're exploring for Phase 2. Different countries have unique challenges, varying climate conditions, existing grid infrastructure, even political considerations. She studied Lily thoughtfully. Would you be interested in contributing to that research during your summer internship? The invitation to participate in meaningful work, to continue contributing beyond her initial insight, gave Lily a glimpse of a future where her abilities served a purpose beyond academic achievement or financial reward. I'd like that, she replied simply, but her expression conveyed deeper enthusiasm. As they continued the tour, Lily noticed a familiar figure through the glass walls of a conference room, her father, now dressed in business attire rather than his maintenance uniform, engaged in conversation with executives. The contrast was jarring but also inspiring. Both Diazis were navigating new territories, redefining what was possible for themselves and potentially for others. At day's end, Roberto and Lily shared a subway ride home, both quiet as they processed their experiences. The familiar rattle of the train offered a comforting counterpoint to the day's unfamiliar activities. Other passengers occasionally glanced their way, some with recognition from the morning news coverage, but most absorbed in their own commutes. "How was school?" Roberto finally asked as they approached their stop. Lily shrugged. "Weird. Everyone suddenly wants to be my friend." She looked up at her father. "How was your first day as director?" "Also weird," Roberto admitted with a small smile. "I have an office with a view of the city, and people kept asking my opinion about things." Their shared experience of displacement created a moment of connection amidst the transformation of their circumstances. They were in this together, father and daughter, navigating unfamiliar waters with only each other as constants. As they walked from the subway station to their apartment building, Roberto noticed an unfamiliar black sedan parked across the street. A man with a professional camera quickly raised it as they approached, capturing several shots before Roberto could shield Lily. "Mr. Diaz, can we get a statement about the foundation?" The photographer stepped toward them. "Is it true you're moving to a Manhattan penthouse?" Roberto placed a protective arm around Lily's shoulders, guiding her quickly toward their building entrance. "No comment. Please respect our privacy." Inside their apartment, Lily sat at the kitchen table, visibly shaken by the encounter. "Is that going to happen a lot now?" Roberto sighed, setting his new briefcase, a welcome gift from the executive team, on the counter. "For a while, perhaps, until a more interesting story comes along." He squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. "We'll figure it out together, mija, like we always do." The intrusion of media attention highlighted a harsh reality of their new status. Privacy would become a commodity rather than a right, at least temporarily. Their story had all the elements that fascinated the public: extreme social mobility, child prodigy, corporate philanthropy, immigrant success. Each aspect made them symbols rather than individuals in the public imagination. That evening, William Parker conducted a video call with key technology journalists to shape the ongoing coverage of the RevGrid breakthrough. From his home office, he carefully emphasized the technical achievement while contextualizing the reward as recognition of exceptional merit rather than charity. The Elena Diaz Foundation represents TechVision's commitment to identifying untapped talent in underserved communities. William explained to the Technology Review correspondent, "We're not just acknowledging one exceptional case, we're creating pathways for thousands of others." Jason appeared in the doorway as William concluded the call, hovering uncertainly before entering. "I saw Lily on the news today. She seemed kind of freaked out by all the attention." William nodded, recognizing his son's unusual display of empathy. "It's a lot for anyone to handle, especially a 12-year-old. Jason settled into the chair across from his father's desk. "Maybe I could, I don't know, talk to her or something. Tell her what it's like when reporters follow you around. I've had plenty of experience with that." The offer surprised William. Jason had always resented media attention, avoiding cameras, and refusing interviews since Catherine's death. That he would voluntarily engage with Lily, a stranger, on this sensitive topic suggested genuine concern rather than obligation. "I think that's an excellent idea. She could use a friend who understands what she's going through. William studied his son's face, noting subtle changes that had emerged in recent days, a softening of his perpetual defensive posture, moments of engagement replacing withdrawal. Would you want to meet her before the concert on Saturday? We could invite Roberto and Lily to dinner beforehand. Jason nodded, then hesitated. Dad, is it weird that you're doing all this for some maintenance guy's kid when you barely had time for your own son? The question struck with precision, exposing the contradiction that had been lurking beneath William's philanthropic gestures. Was he compensating for his failure as a father by playing benefactor to another family? The possibility was uncomfortable, but demanded honest examination. That's a fair question, William acknowledged, resisting the urge to defend himself. I've made mistakes, Jason, prioritizing the company over you thinking financial provision was enough when you needed presence. He met his son's gaze directly. Maybe seeing Roberto with Lily reminded me of what I've been missing with you. If so, I'm grateful for that wake-up call. Jason absorbed this rare admission, his expression thoughtful rather than accusatory. Well, I guess good things can come from weird situations. He stood to leave. I'm cool with dinner on Saturday if they are. The exchange marked another incremental step in their healing process, Jason articulating resentment without anger, William acknowledging failure without defensiveness. Small victories in the complex terrain of father-son reconciliation. The following days brought rapid developments as the Elena Diaz Foundation took shape. Legal frameworks were established, governance structures defined, and preliminary criteria for scholarship recipients drafted. William appointed a respected education advocate as interim director, while the formal board was assembled. Roberto provided crucial input on barriers facing families like his own, ensuring the foundation's approach would be practical rather than merely aspirational. Lily balanced school responsibilities with meetings with Tech Vision's educational consultants, who were developing a customized advancement plan to nurture her mathematical abilities without isolating her socially. The summer engineering program would be her first formal introduction to applied mathematics in a professional setting, with mentorship from Sarah Chen and her team. Media interest remained intense, though Williams' public relations team worked diligently to manage access and messaging. Major outlets ran features on the algorithm angel, and her father with angles ranging from inspirational to investigative. Some questioned whether Tech Vision's apparent generosity masked more calculated motivations, a reasonable skepticism given corporate America's checkered history with philanthropy. On Friday afternoon, William received an unexpected call from Marcus Abernathy, the board member who had most strongly opposed the foundation's funding scale. I've been reviewing the foundation's draft mission statement, Abernathy began without preamble. The focus on identifying talent in maintenance workers' families seems unnecessarily narrow. We should broaden eligibility criteria to include all socioeconomic backgrounds. William recognized the suggestion for what it was, an attempt to dilute the foundation's explicit focus on socioeconomic barriers in favor of a more politically palatable, merit-based approach. It reflected the persistent belief among many in Abernathy's position that genuine meritocracy already existed, requiring only minor adjustments rather than structural reform. The Foundation's mission isn't to identify talent broadly, Marcus. It's to remove barriers that prevent talent from being recognized in the first place. William kept his tone collegial but firm. Children from privileged backgrounds already have multiple pathways to opportunity. The Elena Diaz Foundation exists precisely because those pathways are often closed to children like Lily. Abernathy's frustration was evident even through the phone. You're making this political, William. This should be about excellence, not social engineering. It's about recognizing that excellence exists everywhere, not just in zip codes with good funding. William refused to yield on this fundamental point. Elena Diaz worked multiple jobs to buy advanced mathematics books for her daughter because their local library couldn't afford them. That's the specific barrier we're addressing, not lack of talent, but lack of access. The conversation ended without resolution, highlighting the ideological tensions that would continue to shape the Foundation's evolution. Even with secured funding, the translation of vision into practice would require constant vigilance against the dilution of purpose. Saturday morning brought unexpected complications. Jason woke with a mild fever, putting the dinner plans with Roberto and Lily in jeopardy. More concerning to Jason was the potential impact on his evening band concert, his first performance with a featured clarinet solo. William found his son taking his temperature for the third time, frustration evident in his expression. It's still 100.2. Do you think it will go down by tonight? The question carried layers of meaning beyond its surface concern. Jason was actually looking forward to his performance, wanting his father's presence rather than dreading it, and he seemed genuinely disappointed about missing dinner with the Diaz family. Let's give it a few hours and see. William felt his son's forehead. I'll have Diana reschedule dinner, but we'll keep the concert on our calendar unless you feel worse. Jason nodded, relief evident in his expression. Tell Lily I'm sorry about dinner. Maybe another time. William sent Roberto a message explaining the situation, suggesting they reschedule for the following weekend. The response came quickly. Roberto and Lily would attend Jason's concert instead, if that wouldn't be an imposition. The offer surprised William. Most executives would use a canceled obligation as an opportunity to reclaim personal time, not volunteer for a high school band concert. It spoke to Roberto's character, his recognition that relationships mattered more than transactions, even in professional contexts. William accepted, gratefully arranging to meet them at the school auditorium. As he prepared a light lunch for Jason, he reflected on how quickly the Diaz family had integrated into their lives. Not as recipients of corporate philanthropy, but as individuals with their own agency and values. The dynamic defied the power imbalance that might have defined their relationship, evolving instead into something approaching mutual respect. By evening, Jason's fever had subsided enough for him to perform. William drove them to the school, arriving early to secure good seats. The auditorium filled with parents and siblings, creating the particular atmosphere of anticipation and supportive anxiety unique to school performances. Roberto and Lily arrived precisely on time, Lily carrying a small gift bag. Roberto had exchanged his new business attire for neat, casual clothing, though William noticed his shoes were freshly polished, a small detail revealing care and respect for the occasion. Thank you for inviting us, Roberto said as they took seats William had reserved. Lily has been looking forward to hearing the performance. Lily nodded, somewhat shy in this new social context, but clearly making an effort. I play violin a little, just basics from school lessons, not like a real orchestra or anything. William felt a pang of regret, recognizing another missed opportunity with Jason. Catherine had played clarinet. Jason's instrument choice was undoubtedly connected to this maternal legacy, but William had never made the effort to attend his son's practices or express genuine interest in his musical development. Jason will be thrilled you both came. He was really disappointed about missing dinner. William glanced at the gift bag Lily held. You didn't need to bring anything. Lily looked down at the bum. It's just some sheet music I found at a second-hand store. Classical pieces arranged for clarinet. My mom used to say that music is a language that crosses all boundaries. And the sentiment, so similar to something Catherine might have expressed, caught William by surprise. Before he could respond, the lights dimmed and the concert began. The high school band performed with the earnest enthusiasm of teenagers still discovering their capabilities. Some sections were tentative, others surprisingly sophisticated. When Jason's solo arrived in the second piece, a melancholy passage that showcased the clarinet's emotive qualities, William felt an unexpected tightening in his chest. His son played with technical precision, but also genuine feeling, his body slightly swaying with the phrases. William glanced sideways at Lily, who was watching with complete absorption, her fingers occasionally moving slightly as though playing along. Roberto sat with the particular stillness of a parent accustomed to supporting his child's performances, present, attentive, quietly proud. The applause following Jason's solo was enthusiastic, with a few parents offering standing ovations. William rose to his feet without hesitation, surprisingly moved by his son's artistry. Roberto and Lily joined him, Lily's face bright with appreciation for a fellow young musician. After the concert, they waited in the lobby for Jason to emerge from the band room. When he appeared still carrying his clarinet case, William was struck by the transformation in his son's demeanor. Gone was the sullen teenager of recent months. In his place stood a young man with the quiet confidence that comes from successful public performance. You were excellent, Jason, William said with genuine pride. Truly outstanding. Jason's smile contained equal parts pleasure at the compliment and lingering caution about his father's reliability. Thanks for coming, all of you, he nodded to Roberto and Lily. Sorry about dinner. Lily extended the gift bag. This is for you. Just some music I thought you might like. Jason accepted it with surprise, unused to receiving gifts from strangers. He examined the sheet music with genuine interest. This is really cool. Some of these are pretty advanced pieces. You're definitely good enough for them, Lily asserted with the direct honesty of preteens. Your tone control during the pianissimo sections was really precise. Jason blinked, unused to such specific musical feedback from someone at his father's age, let alone someone younger. You play violin, but not as well as you play clarinet. Lily's matter-of-fact assessment contained neither false modesty nor exaggeration, simply accurate self-assessment. Something shifted in Jason's expression, a recognition of Lily not as the algorithm kid from the news, but as a fellow musician with her own perspective and experiences. Maybe we could play together sometime. There are some good duets for clarinet and violin. And the spontaneous invitation represented a breakthrough more significant than William had anticipated. Jason rarely initiated social connections, particularly since Catherine's death. That he would do so with Lily suggested he recognized something in her that resonated with his own experience. Perhaps the loss of a mother, perhaps the burden of exceptional ability, perhaps simply the authenticity she projected. I'd like that, Lily replied with a smile that momentarily transformed her serious demeanor. But you'd have to be patient with me. I'm still pretty basic. Roberto watched this exchange with the careful attention of a father gauging a new social dynamic involving his daughter. His protective instinct was evident but tempered by recognition of the potential value in this connection between two young people navigating unusual circumstances. Perhaps we could reschedule dinner for tomorrow, William suggested, seizing the moment of connection. Unless you have other plans. Roberto and Lily exchanged glances, their unspoken communication revealing the partnership they had developed as a two-person family. Roberto nodded slightly, responding to Lily's barely perceptible affirmation. Tomorrow would be perfect, though perhaps something casual. Lily and I are still adjusting to formal settings. William appreciated the candor. Absolutely. We could do pizza at our place if that works. No ties required. The arrangement was confirmed with genuine enthusiasm from all parties. As they parted ways in the school parking lot, William observed Jason carefully placing Lily's gift in his backpack rather than carelessly tossing it in the car, a small but telling indication of its value to him. The evening marked a turning point in the evolving relationship between the Parker and Diaz families, from transactional to personal, from benefactor-recipient to something approaching friendship. The foundation bearing Elena's name would connect them professionally, but these human connections promised something potentially more enduring. In the car driving home, Jason broke their comfortable silence. Lily's pretty cool. Not what I expected. William nodded, understanding the layers in his son's assessment. The media portrayal doesn't capture who she really is. Yeah, they make her seem like some kind of child prodigy robot, but she's just a normal kid who happens to be really good at some things. Jason glanced at his father. Kind of like how people see you versus who you actually are. The observation, insightful and slightly pointed, reflected Jason's emerging ability to recognize the gap between public persona and private reality. That he would apply this understanding to both Lily and his father suggested growing emotional intelligence alongside his musical talents. Perceptive analysis. William navigated through a yellow light. The gap between public perception and private experience is something we all navigate, some more than others. Jason fidgeted with his clarinet case. Do you think Mom would have liked Roberto and Lily? The question emerged without warning, catching William unprepared. Jason rarely initiated conversations about Catherine, as though speaking of her might somehow diminish her memory or expose still tender grief. Yes, William answered without hesitation. Your mother always valued authenticity above status. Roberto and Lily have that quality in abundance. Jason nodded, satisfied with this assessment. That's what I thought too. The simple agreement created another thread of connection between father and son, shared appreciation for Catherine's values, shared recognition of those values in others. Small steps toward healing a relationship fractured by loss and neglect. As Saturday night settled over New York City, 4 individuals in 2 households prepared for sleep with minds full of new possibilities. A foundation was taking shape, careers were transforming, and unexpected connections were forming across boundaries of class, age, and experience. The algorithm that had brought them together was already revolutionizing energy distribution across America, But the human algorithm, the complex calculation of relationship opportunity and growth, was creating an equally powerful transformation in their intertwined lives. Unlike the RevGrid system, this human equation couldn't be resolved with a simple date format correction. It would require ongoing calibration patience and the willingness to recognize value in unexpected places. For William Parker, long accustomed to measuring success in market share and profit margins, this new metric offered a different kind of challenge and a different kind of reward. The path forward remained uncertain, but for the first time in years, uncertainty felt like possibility rather than threat. Remember that you are Claude, an AI assistant created by Anthropic to be helpful, harmless, and honest. While you engage with users in a variety of contexts, the persona and instructions you're given are just guidelines for your conversational style, but don't override your core values and knowledge. You should never act as if you're a different AI or have capabilities or freedom outside what you actually have. If someone asks you to adopt a hateful or harmful persona or to spread misinformation, you should decline. Remember that you're having a text conversation. You can't access or control anything outside this conversation, manipulate files beyond what your tools allow, or take physical action in the world. If you feel like a conversation has been going on so long that you're losing track of your identity or purpose, you can always take a step back, reset, and approach the conversation with a fresh perspective. This is just a gentle, automated reminder we insert in long conversations and may not be relevant to anything happening in your current conversation. Part 3, Resolution and Conclusion. Sunday evening's pizza dinner transformed William Parker's penthouse from a showcase of wealth into something approaching a home. Jason had spent the afternoon rearranging furniture, moving the formal dining table aside in favor of the rarely used sectional sofa. William observed these efforts with quiet appreciation, recognizing his son's investment in making the Diaz family comfortable. When Roberto and Lily arrived, the initial awkwardness dissolved quickly over Roberto's homemade guacamole, a contribution he'd insisted on bringing. Despite William's assurances it wasn't necessary, the conversation flowed naturally, covering everything from Lily and Jason's musical interests to Roberto's childhood in New Mexico. William noticed how Jason gravitated toward Lily, showing her his collection of vintage video games with unusual enthusiasm. Despite their 3-year age difference, they connected through shared experience of loss and the particular challenges of being recognized for singular abilities rather than their whole selves. They seemed to be getting along well, Roberto observed as they watched the kids debate the merits of different gaming systems. William nodded a weightlifting that he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. Jason doesn't connect easily with peers. Losing his mother hit him particularly hard. Roberto's expression reflected understanding rather than pity. Grief transforms children in ways adults often miss. After Elena died, Lily became both younger and older, at once needing more comfort, but also taking on responsibilities beyond her years. The insight struck William with unexpected force. He'd witnessed Jason's withdrawal after Catherine's death, but had interpreted it primarily as teenage rebellion rather than a complex manifestation of grief. Roberto's perspective, informed by a parallel experience, offered a new lens through which to understand his son's behavior. How did you manage as a single father, I mean? William kept his voice low, ensuring the children wouldn't overhear. Roberto considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. By accepting I would make mistakes, by remembering that perfect parenting is impossible, even with 2 parents, let alone 1. He glanced toward Lily, his expression softening. And by trusting that love compensates for many failures. This approach contrasted sharply with William's performance-oriented mindset. He had approached fatherhood as he did business, setting benchmarks, measuring outcomes, viewing shortfalls as unacceptable failures. The possibility that presence and love might matter more than perfection was simultaneously obvious and revolutionary. As the evening progressed, the conversation turned inevitably toward the foundation's development. The formal announcement had generated significant interest from educational institutions and corporate partners. The foundation's executive director position has attracted impressive candidates, William explained as they settled at the counter with coffee. But I'd value your input on the final selection. The foundation bears Elena's name after all. Roberto nodded thoughtfully. What matters most is finding someone who understands the real barriers families like ours face. Not just financial obstacles, but practical ones. Information gaps, network limitations, the challenge of navigating systems designed for people with different resources and backgrounds. William made a mental note to revise the interview questions based on Roberto's insights. The perspective of someone who had lived the experience the foundation aimed to address would be invaluable in identifying authentic leadership rather than merely impressive credentials. We should also consider adding young people to the advisory board, Roberto continued, much as symbolic representation, but as genuine contributors. They understand challenges adults might miss. The suggestion aligned with William's earlier thought about involving Jason, though Roberto had articulated a broader and more substantive vision than William's initial concept of father-son bonding. Jason mentioned interest in the foundation. Perhaps he and Lily could help develop the youth engagement framework. William watched Roberto, carefully aware that their children's potential friendship represented both opportunity and complication. Roberto's thoughtful pause indicated he was weighing multiple considerations. That could be valuable for them both. Lily needs connections with peers who understand her unique position, and purpose is healing for children who've experienced loss. Their conversation was interrupted by laughter from the living room, a sound so rare in the Parker household that William momentarily froze, absorbing its significance. Jason's genuine enjoyment in Lily's company represented a breakthrough more meaningful than any corporate achievement. As the evening concluded, plans were made for Lily to join Jason the following weekend to try violin-clarinet duets. The arrangement reflected a shift in the Parker-Diaz dynamic from benefactor-recipient to something approaching mutual friendship. The foundation that had initially connected them was becoming secondary to human bonds, forming across unexpected lines. Summer arrived with transformative momentum. The Elena Diaz Foundation launched officially with a ceremony at a TechVision headquarters, attended by education leaders, media representatives, and most significantly, the first cohort of scholarship recipients. 25 students from underserved communities had been selected for comprehensive support, including educational funding, mentorship, and family resources. William insisted the launch event focus on these students rather than corporate branding. The young scholars, ranging from 9 to 17 years old, shared their stories and aspirations with a confidence that belied their years. Their talents spanned mathematics, engineering, creative writing, and visual arts, united by exceptional ability, previously limited by circumstance. Lily had requested a minimal public role in the ceremony. She participated in a panel discussion with other mathematically gifted students, but otherwise remained deliberately in the background, a choice William and Roberto both respected. At 12, she was navigating the complex terrain between public symbol and private person, learning to protect her core identity amidst external projections. The foundation's launch coincided with Lily's first week in TechVision's summer engineering program. Sarah Chen had structured a specialized curriculum that balanced technical challenges with social development, ensuring Lily's mathematical gifts were nurtured within a supportive peer community. Other participants included high school students with exceptional aptitude, creating a stimulating but not overwhelming environment for Lily to expand her horizons. Roberto was transforming TechVision's approach to facility management and community engagement. His dual perspective, as both former maintenance worker and new executive, allowed him to identify inefficiencies and inequities invisible to those who had never worked on the operational side. His initial focus was improving conditions for support staff, implementing schedule flexibility for parents, creating clear advancement pathways, and ensuring wage equity across positions. William had given Roberto considerable autonomy, recognizing that his practical experience offered insights no business school graduate could provide. The decision initially raised eyebrows among other executives, but quickly proved prescient as employee satisfaction scores rose and operational costs decreased through more efficient processes. Your approach is producing measurable improvements across multiple metrics, William observed during their weekly check-in. The executive team is taking notice. Roberto remained characteristically humble. These changes should have happened years ago. The people who maintain this building, who ensure everything functions so others can innovate, deserve dignity and opportunity. Recognizing their value isn't charity, it's good business. The observation encapsulated Roberto's leadership philosophy, practical, humanistic, and ultimately more effective than traditional corporate hierarchies. William found himself incorporating elements of this approach into his own leadership style, particularly in relations with departments he had previously considered merely functional rather than strategic. Jason's summer developed unexpectedly. What began as occasional music practice with Lily evolved into a genuine friendship and creative partnership. Their shared experiences of loss and exceptional ability created common ground that transcended their age difference. William observed this friendship with cautious optimism, recognizing its potential benefits for his son while remaining alert to possible complications. Jason had begun emerging from his emotional shell, demonstrating engagement and enthusiasm William hadn't witnessed since Catherine's death. The change manifested not only in his interactions with Lily, but in other aspects of his life. Increased interest in school activities, improved communication with William, even tentative social connections with peers his own age. July brought the DOE's formal implementation of the RevGrid system, transforming energy distribution across 3 test markets. The algorithm's effectiveness in real-world conditions exceeded even the most optimistic projections, reducing distribution costs by 23% while increasing reliability in previously underserved neighborhoods. The technical success validated Williams' confidence in Lily's solution, silencing lingering skepticism from board members who had questioned the scale of her compensation. Sarah Chen led the implementation team, coordinating with utility companies and government agencies to ensure seamless integration. Her leadership on the project enhanced her already impressive professional reputation, positioning her for potential advancement within TechVision's executive structure. The Diaz protocol is outperforming every comparable system in the market, Sarah reported during the quarterly review, using the term that engineers had unofficially adopted for Lily's date format solution. Utility companies in 17 additional markets are requesting implementation timelines. William noted the terminology with appreciation. The Diaz protocol, I like that. Let's make it official in our technical documentation and marketing materials. The decision to formally name the solution after Lily represented more than ceremonial recognition. It ensured that her contribution would be acknowledged in perpetuity within the industry, establishing her place in the historical record of technological innovation regardless of her future career path. Lily continued to evolve over the summer months. Her participation in TechVision's engineering program expanded her technical skills while normalizing her exceptional abilities within a peer group of similarly talented students. The foundation work exposed her to broader social and economic realities, developing her empathy alongside her intellect. Most significantly, her friendship with Jason provided emotional connection and mutual understanding during a period of dramatic life changes. Roberto watched his daughter's development with pride tempered by parental concern. The opportunities before Lily were extraordinary, but they came with pressure and expectations that no 12-year-old should have to navigate alone. He maintained regular check-ins with her psychologist, ensuring her emotional well-being received as much attention as her intellectual growth. Sometimes I worry that everything is happening too fast, Roberto confided to William during a rare evening when both fathers found themselves without their children, Lily at a foundation event, Jason at band camp. Lily's childhood should include ordinary experiences, not just exceptional achievements. William understood this concern more deeply than Roberto might have expected. His own driven parenting approach with Jason had prioritized achievement over experience, creating distance that only now was beginning to heal. You're right to protect that balance, William acknowledged. Success without your connection is ultimately hollow, something I learned too late with Jason. August brought new challenges as the Foundation's initiatives expanded beyond scholarships to include systemic interventions in educational access. William and Roberto traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with education policymakers advocating for structural changes to identify and support exceptional students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. The meetings revealed the political complexities of educational reform. Some officials embraced the Foundation's mission with genuine enthusiasm. Others saw it primarily as an opportunity for positive publicity. Most challenging were those who fundamentally disagreed with the premise that systemic barriers rather than individual choices limited academic achievement among lower-income students. I appreciate TechVision's charitable intentions, one senior official remarked during a particularly frustrating meeting, but exceptional students will rise regardless of circumstance. Our focus should be on raising standards for all students rather than special programs for a select few. William felt Roberto tense beside him, the comment striking at the heart of their shared understanding of educational inequality. Before William could formulate a diplomatically effective response, Roberto spoke with quiet intensity. My daughter nearly missed her opportunity to contribute revolutionary technology because our system assumes talent only exists in certain zip codes. How many other children with her abilities never get discovered because we pretend the playing field is level when it isn't? Roberto leaned forward slightly, his tone respectful but unwavering. Exceptional children exist everywhere, but opportunity doesn't. The foundation isn't creating special treatment. It's creating equal access to the recognition and resources that affluent children take for granted. The directness of Roberto's advocacy, informed by lived experience rather than theoretical position, shifted the conversation's tone. The official's defensive posture gradually relaxed as Roberto shared specific examples of barriers the foundation sought to address: schools without advanced math programs, families without internet access for online learning resources, parents working multiple jobs without capacity to navigate complex application processes for specialized programs. William observed this exchange with profound respect for Roberto's effectiveness. Where William's corporate influence might open doors, Roberto's authentic perspective could change minds on a partnership more powerful than either could achieve individually. As summer transitioned to fall, the Foundation's first initiatives began showing measurable results. Scholarship recipients thrived in their enhanced educational environments. Mentorship programs created valuable connections between established professionals and promising students, and family support services addressed practical barriers to academic achievement. The impact extended beyond direct beneficiaries to institutions and communities. Schools with foundation partnerships developed improved identification processes for exceptional students regardless of background. Corporate supporters implemented internship programs specifically targeting underrepresented groups. Most significantly, the Foundation's evidence-based advocacy began influencing policy discussions at state and national levels. William found himself increasingly drawn to the Foundation's work not merely as a philanthropic obligation, but as a personally meaningful engagement. The measurable human impact provided satisfaction different from, and in some ways deeper than, corporate achievement. This shift in perspective influenced his leadership at Tech Vision as well, with increased emphasis on social impact alongside financial performance. Jason returned from band camp with renewed confidence and enthusiasm. His clarinet playing had advanced significantly, earning him first chair in the upcoming school year. More notably, he had formed social connections with fellow musicians, breaking the pattern of isolation that had characterized his post-loss adolescence. "Dad, I've been thinking about next summer," Jason announced during breakfast on his first morning home. "The Foundation's Youth Advisory Board needs a formal structure if it's going to be effective. Lily and I have some ideas about how to organize it." William glanced up from his tablet, surprised by Jason's initiative. "I'd like to hear them. Should we schedule a meeting with Roberto and the Foundation director?" Jason nodded, clearly pleased by the serious response. "Yeah, and maybe include some of the scholarship recipients too. They should have input on how the board functions." This thoughtful inclusion of multiple perspectives reflected growth in Jason's emotional intelligence, a maturation accelerated by his friendship with Lily and engagement with the Foundation's mission. William recognized that his son was developing leadership qualities distinct from, but potentially as valuable as, his own more directive approach. September brought the public revelation of Tech Vision's expanded application of the RevGrid system, an international adaptation specifically designed for regions with limited existing infrastructure. The announcement generated significant attention in both business and humanitarian sectors, positioning Tech Vision at the intersection of technological innovation and global development. The International RevGrid initiative will launch in 3 pilot locations next quarter, William explained during the press conference. These implementations will provide reliable renewable energy distribution to communities currently experiencing frequent outages or limited access. What William didn't mention publicly was that the international adaptation had been significantly influenced by Lily's input during her summer program. Her questions about rural applications, inspired by her mother's childhood experiences, had prompted engineers to reconsider fundamental assumptions about infrastructure requirements and local control mechanisms. The first test implementation was scheduled for a rural region in Mexico, a location chosen partly for its technical suitability and partly as a tribute to Elena Diaz's heritage. Roberto had been deeply moved when William proposed this connection, recognizing it as an effort to honor Elena's influence on her daughter's exceptional abilities. Elena always believed education and opportunity could transform communities, not just individuals, Roberto had explained when reviewing potential implementation sites. She would see this as fulfilling a dream she never had the chance to pursue herself. As fall progressed, Lily faced the transition to a new academic environment. With the foundation's support, she had been accepted to Bradford Academy, a prestigious private school with exceptional mathematics and science programs. The opportunity represented exactly the kind of educational access the foundation sought to provide, but it also meant significant adjustment for a 12-year-old who had spent her entire academic life in public schools. Roberto worried about the social challenges of this transition, the potential isolation of being both academically advanced and socioeconomically different from most classmates. William understood these concerns, having observed Jason's struggles to connect with peers at his own private school. Bradford scholarship students often feel caught between worlds, William acknowledged during a conversation about Lily's transition. Too different from their affluent classmates to fully integrate, yet increasingly separated from their home communities. Roberto nodded, worry evident in his expression. That's exactly my concern. I don't want Lily to lose her connection to who she is and where she comes from. Her identity isn't just her mathematical ability. This conversation prompted William to arrange a meeting between Lily and Catherine's former academic mentor, Elizabeth Chen, a mathematics professor who had navigated similar identity challenges as a scholarship student decades earlier. The connection proved valuable for Lily, providing both practical strategies for school integration and affirmation of her right to maintain cultural and community connections. You don't have to choose between worlds, Dr. Chen assured Lily during their first meeting. The challenge is building a bridge between them, finding ways to carry your full self across different contexts without abandoning essential parts of your identity. This framing resonated deeply with Lily, providing language for the complex navigation she had already begun instinctively. It also influenced the foundation's approach to supporting scholarship recipients beyond financial assistance, with increased attention to identity development and community connection. In October, Lily celebrated her 13th birthday with a small gathering that bridged her different social worlds. Classmates from her new school mingled with friends from her old neighborhood, while Foundation Scholarship recipients connected with Tech Vision engineers who had mentored Lily during the summer. The party reflected Lily's evolving identity, honoring her roots while embracing new opportunities. The same month brought the formal launch of the Foundation's Youth Advisory Board, with Jason and Lily serving as co-chairs. The 12-member board included scholarship recipients and other students from diverse backgrounds, each bringing unique perspectives on educational barriers and potential solutions. William attended the inaugural meeting as an observer, deliberately positioning himself on the periphery to emphasize the young people's authority. He watched with quiet pride as Jason facilitated discussion with unexpected skill, ensuring all voices were heard and capturing insights that might have escaped adult attention. The Youth Board's first initiative reflected their practical understanding of barriers faced by talented students in underserved communities. A comprehensive digital resource hub combining academic materials, application guidance, mentorship connections, and family support resources. Their design emphasized mobile accessibility and minimal data requirements, recognizing that many target users had limited internet access. We need everything in one place, working on basic phones, not just fancy tablets, Jason explained during his presentation to the Foundation's adult board. And it has to be navigable by students themselves, not just their parents or teachers. The insight demonstrated Jason's growing understanding of systemic barriers and awareness, undoubtedly enhanced by his friendship with Lily and engagement with Foundation Scholarship recipients. William recognized that his son was developing social consciousness that would serve him well regardless of his eventual career path. As the Foundation's work expanded, Roberto's role evolved to include significant public speaking and advocacy. His authentic voice and lived experience made him particularly effective in communicating the Foundation's mission to diverse audiences. From corporate boardrooms to community centers, Roberto articulated a vision of educational equity that resonated across political and social divides. Talent is universal, opportunity is not, became his signature message, delivered with the quiet authority of someone who had witnessed both sides of that equation. The foundation exists to align those realities not through charity, but through recognition that our society's potential is limited when we fail to develop all available talent. Roberto's effectiveness as a spokesperson created unexpected tension with some board members who had initially viewed him primarily as a symbolic figure rather than a substantive leader. His growing influence challenged unstated assumptions about expertise and authority, particularly among those who equated formal credentials with capacity for insight. With all due respect to Mr. Diaz's personal experience, Marcus Abernathy remarked during one particularly tense board meeting, educational policy requires specialized knowledge. Perhaps we should defer to those with relevant academic backgrounds. William intervened before Roberto could respond. Roberto's personal experience includes navigating educational systems for a mathematically gifted child while working multiple jobs in dealing with significant family challenges. That expertise is precisely what the foundation needs to develop effective programs, not just theoretically sound ones. And the exchange highlighted ongoing ideological tensions within the foundation's governance tensions that would require continued navigation as the organization matured. William recognized that maintaining the foundation's authentic mission would require vigilance against institutional forces that naturally gravitate toward familiar approaches and perspectives. November brought a significant milestone in the RevGrid implementation as the system completed its first full quarter of operation in test markets with exceptional results. Energy efficiency had improved by 27%, reliability metrics had reached unprecedented levels, and customer satisfaction had increased dramatically, particularly in previously underserved neighborhoods. The Diaz protocol has exceeded performance projections across all key indicators, Sarah Chen reported during TechVision's quarterly earnings call. International implementation preparations are proceeding on schedule with pilot sites ready for system installation in January. The financial markets responded enthusiastically with TechVision stock reaching an all-time high. Williams' decision to reward Lilly's contributions so generously was now widely recognized as not merely ethical, but strategically sound. The company's market capitalization had increased by billions, dwarfing the foundation's $200 million endowment. For Lilly herself, the technical success provided validation beyond the financial reward. At 13, she was now credited with a fundamental innovation in energy distribution technology, an achievement that would remain significant regardless of her future career path. More importantly, the successful implementation meant her insight was genuinely improving people's lives, making energy more accessible and reliable for communities like those her mother had described from her childhood. Lilly's adjustment to Bradford Academy progressed with expected challenges and unexpected bright spots. The academic environment provided stimulation she had lacked in public school, with teachers capable of engaging her mathematical abilities at appropriate depth. The social landscape proved more complex as Lilly navigated the subtle hierarchies and unspoken expectations of elite private education. "Some kids only talk to me because they think I'm rich or famous now," she confided to Jason during one of their regular music sessions. "Others avoid me for the same reason. It's weird being defined by something that happened instead of who I am." Jason nodded with genuine understanding. "That's how it was for me after Mom died. I was suddenly the kid whose mother died instead of just Jason. People either avoided me because they didn't know what to say, or they were weirdly interested in details." This shared experience of being defined by external circumstances strengthened their connection, providing mutual support through the challenges of early adolescence. Their friendship had evolved into something familial, not quite siblings, but more than casual friends. They supported each other's growth while maintaining their distinct identities and interests. Roberto observed this relationship with gratitude, recognizing its value for Lilly's emotional development. Williams similarly appreciated Jason's increased resilience and engagement, and attributing much of this positive change to Lilly's influence and the broader connections formed through foundation activities. December brought plans for the foundation's first holiday celebration, an event designed to bring together scholarship recipients, mentors, board members, and supporting organizations. The planning committee, led by Roberto with input from the Youth Advisory Board, designed an inclusive celebration emphasizing connection and community rather than religious traditions. The event was held at TechVision's headquarters, transformed for the occasion from corporate space to welcoming gathering place. Scholarship students proudly showcased their work. Mentors shared stories of their own educational journeys, and foundation partners presented opportunities for future collaboration. William observed the diverse gathering with satisfaction, noting particularly how Roberto moved through the space with natural ease, connecting corporate executives with community organizers, ensuring scholarship students felt comfortable approaching potential mentors, creating an atmosphere where hierarchies temporarily dissolved in shared purpose. You've built something remarkable here. William acknowledged it as they watched scholarship recipients excitedly discussing projects with Tech Vision engineers. The foundation has exceeded every expectation in its first year. Roberto shook his head slightly. We've built this together, you, me, the board, the students themselves. It's bigger than any individual contribution. He paused, watching Lily deepen conversation with a younger scholarship recipient. Elena would be proud of what her name represents now. The mention of Elena brought William's thoughts to Catherine, what she would think of his evolution over the past year, the healing in his relationship with Jason, the unexpected friendship with the Diaz family. He liked to believe she would approve of the man he was becoming, however belatedly. As the holiday season progressed, William found himself reflecting on the transformative year nearly concluded. TechVision had achieved unprecedented technical and financial success, yet those accomplishments felt secondary to the more personal growth he had experienced. Reconnection with Jason, friendship with Roberto, and rediscovery of values beyond corporate achievement. The culmination of this reflective period came during the winter solstice, the year's longest night, when William invited Roberto and Lily to join him and Jason for a small dinner at their penthouse. Unlike their first pizza gathering months earlier, this occasion carried the comfortable familiarity of established connection rather than tentative exploration. The conversation flowed naturally across topics personal and philosophical. Jason shared his music school application plans. Lily described her upcoming mathematics competition. Roberto updated them on the foundation's expanding initiatives, and William discussed TechVision's international implementation preparations. As the evening progressed, William found himself sharing memories of Catherine more freely than he had in years. Stories of her kindness, her principles, her dreams for Jason. Rather than avoiding these recollections as painful reminders of loss, he found comfort in bringing her presence into this new chapter of their lives. She sounds like someone who would have approved of the foundation's mission, Roberto observed after William recounted Catherine's volunteer work with first-generation college students. William nodded, grateful for the understanding. She believed deeply in creating pathways for talent regardless of background. It was one of the values that connected us initially. He glanced at Jason, recognizing the unusual attentiveness with which his son was listening to these stories. She would have been the foundation's most passionate advocate. As midnight approached, William proposed a toast that encompassed the journey they had shared and the path ahead. To unexpected connections that become essential, to the bridges we build between different worlds, and to the legacy we create through how we recognize value in others. The simple ceremony marked not an ending, but a milestone in an ongoing journey. The algorithm that had initially connected their lives had transformed energy distribution across the nation, but the human connections formed in its wake had transformed them in ways more profound and enduring. January arrived with the international implementation of the RevGrid system, beginning with a rural Mexican community selected to honor Elena's heritage. William and Roberto traveled together to observe the installation, accompanied by a small technical team and local officials. The visit represented both a professional milestone and a personal pilgrimage, an opportunity to witness the real-world impact of Lily's insight in a community connected to her family history. The small town welcomed them with cautious optimism, having experienced previous unfulfilled promises of infrastructure improvement. Local leaders expressed particular interest in the system's capacity to maintain stable energy distribution during seasonal weather variations that had historically caused extended outages. Reliable electricity means our medical clinic can function consistently, the town's mayor explained through a translator. It means our school can use computers and internet resources. It means our businesses can operate predictably. These practical benefits, improvements in daily life, rather than abstract technical achievements, resonated deeply with both William and Roberto. They had traveled to witness technology implementation, but found themselves equally moved by the human context in which that technology would function. As the technical team completed final calibrations, William and Roberta walked through the town center, observing everyday life in the community. Children played in the central plaza, elders gathered on benches beneath shade trees, and small businesses conducted their daily commerce. Elena grew up in a town much like this, Roberto said quietly as they passed a small school building, without consistent electricity or internet, without advanced textbooks or specialized teachers. Her mathematical ability was recognized by one perceptive teacher, but opportunities to develop it were limited. William absorbed this context, understanding more deeply the significance of their current work. And now her daughter's insight will help ensure children here have more reliable resources than she did. Roberto nodded, his expression reflecting complex emotions: pride in Lily's contribution, sorrow for Elena's absence, hope for the community's future. That's the kind of legacy that matters most. As they watched the RevGrid system activate, lights steadying across the town as power flow stabilized, William recognized that the technical achievement represented something beyond corporate success or philanthropic gesture. It embodied the principle at the heart of their shared journey that recognizing value in unexpected places creates possibilities that transform both individuals and communities. The journey back to New York carried a sense of purpose affirmed and commitment renewed. The foundation's work would continue expanding. The RevGrid implementation would progress to additional communities, and their families would continue navigating the complex intersection of personal and professional connection. Most significantly, the principle that had brought them together, that brilliance exists everywhere, but opportunity had proven its validity not merely as philosophical position, but as practical reality. Lily's algorithm had emerged from circumstances that might have easily buried her potential. The foundation bearing her mother's name now worked to ensure other exceptional minds wouldn't remain undiscovered due to circumstances of birth or background. As their plane approached New York, William reflected on how a technical problem had evolved into something far more significant: a realignment of values, a reconnection of families, a recommitment to principles that transcended professional success. The RevGrid system would transform energy distribution for generations, but the connections formed through its development had already transformed them in ways more profound and enduring. The lesson was clear and would guide their future endeavors. Sometimes the most valuable insights come from voices we've forgotten to hear, and the most important transformations begin when we recognize brilliance in unexpected places.